hope it's not going to rain today, not for this important ball game.
Not to fret, Mrs. Pernoll. I understand there's a $1,000 guarantee for these two teams. So this game will be played this afternoon, no matter what, come rain or shine. Isn't that so, Mr. Linn?
Oh, well, I reckon so, Mr. Wilkinson, but I do hope this train has enough room. I'd hate to be late. I mean, we're not going to have another chance to see these famous players in Southern Oregon.
Well, you know, everybody wants to go to this game. Southern Pacific is actually running trains as far south as Reading and as far north as Roseburg. That's bringing people down here for this game. And Medford itself, the city of Medford, has closed their banks and their businesses and even their own public offices. It's like a holiday.
I just want to see Jim Thorpe. He's that Indian fellow that plays for New York.
Oh, yes, I read that he's the amateur all-around athlete of the world.
Amazing.
Well, and I read that Mr. Court Hall, who owns the baseball field over in Medford, is offering the use of his field for no charge.
I heard the same thing, but they're hoping to make up for it by selling concessions. They publish an official program. They're going to sell as many tickets as possible, of course.
That's reasonable.
And you don't suppose he's counting on some gambling proceeds, do you?
Oh, I don't think we have to suppose anything with Court Hall. Remember back in '04, the game between Medford and Jacksonville? Or should I say, between Court Hall and Jacksonville's George Newber? Thousands of dollars were bet on that.
But you can't put it totally on Newber and Hall. Back in those days, the local baseball contest drew large crowds. There were folks out in that crowd that would bet on anything, including their own shirts.
Well, that may be, but that game in '04, that was something else. I mean, Newber and Hall, they were being mighty sly about the true abilities of their team, playing down their own team so as to encourage more betting. Newber challenged Hall to $1,000, and Hall accepted.
Oh,
that's true, but there were sure others. I mean, there were bettors out in the crowd with sacks of $20 gold pieces. Oh, I heard that over $20,000 was won on that game, which, by the way, Medford won. Hall himself made $4,000. You know, but there's no doubt in my mind that all that gambling has sure soured the game of baseball.
Gambling is just sinful, and it brings out the worst of men.
I miss the early days in Jacksonville's old field. So many games were played there before they tore it down 3 years ago to make city lots.
It was a sad day when they tore down the Nubler-Taylor ball field over there on 5th Street, across from the old Dowell place.
It was a huge improvement over the earlier field we had in Jacksonville out in Bybee Grove. You remember William Bybee's property out on Old Stage Road? He raced horses there, too.
I remember that very well.
There was no comparison between the two. The new field had a fence around it, all the way around it, 8 foot high, so as to discourage any would-be spectators without tickets, and also to keep the long balls away from the town.
Speaking of long balls, did I ever tell you that story about the Wairika game that I went to? With the longest home run hit?
I don't think so.
The ball not only went out of the park, it went clear out of town.
Couldn't be. That's impossible.
I don't understand how that's possible either, Mr. Wilkinson.
Ma'am, I saw it with my own eyes. Al Conley, center fielders, up at bat, hit the ball long and hard out of the park, heading for the railroad tracks. Just as a freight train was coming into the yard. That ball went through the open door. One of the boxcars went all the way to San Francisco.
Oh, I wish that train would come. Look at all these people expecting to get on the train. It's going to be so crowded. Last time I remember a train car so crowded was, well, probably 16 years ago when the Boston Bloomer girls came to play Medford.
How did that game turn out, Miss Pernoll?
The girls lost by only 1 run.
Yes, but I heard that they went on to beat the Ashland boys by 19 runs.
That's true. And then they left on their Pullman Palace train car, $96 richer, and still proclaiming themselves the baseball ladies champions of the world.
Oh, it must have been quite a game. I heard that in the second inning, Ashland just fizzled. I mean, they just couldn't take playing with those girls.
That's true. Those girls got so lonesome waiting for their menfolk that, well, they just ended up beating them at their own game.
Well, my son Eddie told me that the young ladies were always unhappy and upset about how much time the boys spent practicing and playing ball.
So true.
They felt that this time would be much better spent on courting them.
Absolutely.
I remember days past when the the ball game was the quintessential event of a Jacksonville 4th of July. We'd have the parade in the morning, and that would be followed by a ceremony at the courthouse, and then, of course, the picnic lunch. And then everybody got together and turned out at 2 o'clock for the big game. And all this followed by fireworks.
I remember that big game between Jacksonville and Medford, July 4th. I think it was back in '02. The grandstands were totally full. I mean, there were folks sitting on boxcars and on makeshift bleachers made from scrap lumber.
Yes.
The Times reported it the largest crowd ever.
Well, I don't remember that ball game, but I do remember the parade. I remember how nice the Jacksonville Gold Bricks looked marching down the street in their new blue and gold uniforms. Those uniforms cost $7 each. So expensive. But they were the hit of the parade.
Oh, indeed they were.
Mr. Linn, do you remember the Mincer family, Morris and Matilda and their children?
Oh, I certainly do. Good family. And the boys played baseball? Always up to a challenge.
They were, and their grandson, Eddie, went on to play with the Pittsburgh Pirates. Now, gentlemen, that's not very gentlemanly, but his nickname was Midget Mincer. But short as he was bringing home $2,100 a season. That was back in 1910.
Well, we had some impressive talent start right here in Southern Oregon. Ken Williams, outfielder for the St. Louis Browns, was compared to Babe Ruth. He was raised in Josephine County. Benjamin Dahl, Jacksonville boy. Everybody called him Biddy. Went on up and played for Portland.
He did.
Why, your own son, Mrs. Pernoll, Henry. We all called him Judge, And he played for the Detroit Tigers. Imagine a young man right here in the Applegate.
Judd loves to play baseball, and he's such a good son.
And we can't forget your son, Mr. Wilkinson.
Oh, certainly not.
Young Eddie Wilkinson, known throughout Southern Oregon as the classiest ball tosser to ever don a Medford uniform, and he went on to play with the New York Highlanders.
Thank you, Mr. Linn. Appreciate that. And we are very proud of Eddie and all the young men who have given so much to this game and to their home teams. Speaking of the Highlanders, I don't know if you know or not, but they just changed their name this year.
Oh, really?
The team is now called the New York Yankees.
Yankees.
What sort of name is that?
I think I hear the train coming. Mr. Linn, Mr. Wilkinson, would you mind going ahead and saving me a seat? And I'll just gather up my things, and I'll be right along.
Certainly. And in case you were wondering, the New York Giants won that exhibition game 3-0.